the fifth surgeon for my finger. So it's very interesting how sometimes you talk to people who are in the field, and sometimes you talk to people who are not in the field. And they give you insight, and it sort of makes everything come together. So the fourth surgeon I said I didn't have Mallet's finger, which I now know to be correct. Mallet's finger is when your finger droops. If your finger doesn't droop, you don't have Mallet's finger. That's the definition. But as a patient, as a non-specialist, as somebody not in the field, I'm concerned whether or not I would have had a droop, whether or not I would have had issues in the future, which is a different question. That's very difficult to answer. Talking to my friend about this, and he's a surgeon, not a hand surgeon, but just a different type of surgeon. He said, well, it's obvious that you had injury to your finger. So I don't know if you could see, but there's a dot there. And the thing is, the dot was here before, lower, and it's migrated and changed from a bluish dot to black. And it's a hematoma, or so it was diagnosed by my friend who's a dermatologist. Which only makes sense, because what else migrates? So it's just moving along. And it's changed color because as blood sort of breaks down, it becomes black, because that's the color of iron. And the thing is, I did injure my finger, because otherwise why did I have bruising? That's only logical. Would I have had issues? I don't know. Because the question is, what is the threshold of injury to have issues, right? We could do a lot of stuff to our body and not have issues. So we could hit our bone awfully hard, and if you don't see a break, then you don't have a fracture. Sometimes you will have a hairline fracture, which doesn't matter, does it not? I don't think for most of us it does matter, as in our functionality is intact. Though I presume if you're a baseball player or a professional athlete, then it does matter because you just exert yourself so much more. The short of it is that, yes, I had injury to my finger. I probably injured a tendon because it's right there. I splinted it because my friend told me to, even though the hand surgeons I talked to thought it was unnecessary, which ended up being a good thing now because I did injure my finger. Did it prevent me from developing Mallet's finger? Would I have never had developed Mallet's finger? I don't think anybody knows. But it's a good thing I did. Prevention, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, which is a 1:16 ratio for those of you who don't know the stupid US measuring system. But I think the more important thing is, what lesson did I learn? You know, let me use an analogy. If you think about the rest of the medical field, say neurology. If the neurologist told you, yeah, you don't have dementia, but you will develop Alzheimer's in 10 years. And if there's something to do for Alzheimer's, to treat Alzheimer's, would you let the neurologist say, no, you don't need to do anything. Wait till you get it, then we'll treat you. Really? Wouldn't you rather treat a pneumonia before it flares up, becomes so big? I mean, only logically, right? The problem is we don't have anything to treat dementia. There's this new drug that came out, probably doesn't do anything. But, you know, wouldn't we like to, if we could? Gene mutations are a thing that has been in the press recently, and people are doing something about it. There are some gene mutations that give you a very high chance of developing breast cancer. Nothing's 100%, it's not 100%, but it's very high, and some women are getting their breasts removed just because they have that gene mutation, because they think they're going to get breast cancer. They do not have it by any definition of breast cancer, but they think they will with a high probability of certainty. And thus, just in case, before it happens, they will take out the breast. And that's the lesson I guess I learned. You don't know the future. We absolutely don't. We have definitions of medical terms that may or may not make sense. Like pneumonia. Do you know how we define it? We don't. As in, almost never do we take a sample from somebody's lungs. We may have people cough stuff up when we get a sample from their lungs, but first of all, how do you know it's the thing that's bothering them? Second thing is, do you literally stick a needle in people's lungs? And the answer is no. You only take a pretty good sample when they're intubated because they already have a tube going into their lungs. Easy to put a suction down and suck up some stuff. But basically, if you have a finding on the imaging study, if you have symptoms that are related to it, and you have things like a high white count, 2 out of 3 is what I was told. But that doesn't diagnose pneumonia. Our diagnosis is basically too late. We diagnose stuff when it's obvious, when everybody could say what it is, right? The key is when it's not obvious, when it's not so blatant. What do you do about it? Do you splint it because you think there's a high probability that something will happen? Even though I don't think we have any studies saying how much bruising do you have to guarantee you'll get mallets? What is the probability of a hematoma to getting mallets? Maybe we do, but I don't think we do. And that, I think, trillion is not even the right word. More than $1 trillion question in the medical field. Can we catch stuff early enough to change the course of disease? In certain fields, we're saying yes, we're sort of able to. Like inflammatory bowel disease. Before they get bad, you're supposed to give them all these agents, really strong agents, biologics, to knock down disease so they don't have issues in the future. For hepatitis B, we're saying, well, we can't cure it, but we can give you some medication to keep the virus down. And maybe it's like HIV. You'll be more like a normal person. You don't have a higher chance of getting cancer in your liver. But the 5th surgeon, I thank him. It all makes sense now. I don't have Mallet's finger. I did not have Mallet's finger. We did this to reduce the risk of my developing Mallet's finger, which I do not have. So it was a success.